What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 14:45 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela. So, last night, three U.S. B-52 nuclear bombers flew from Louisiana to the southern Caribbean right off the coast of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. So they took off from Barksdale Air Force Base in Shreveport, which is their home base. That's the home base of the air leg of our nuclear triad here in the United States, Air Force Global Strike Command. And they flew all the way down here to the southern Caribbean right off the coast of Caracas, guys, and they were doing loops here. There were three of them doing loops right off the coast of Caracas. So this is extremely concerning. It appears that the U.S. is now practicing bombing runs on Venezuela. This is very, very serious. So you can see all three of them took off from Barksdale up in Shreveport. They went down through the Gulf of America, passed by Cancun, they made a turn to the east by Jamaica, and then they all started looping right here, okay, right off the coast of Caracas. Look at that, guys. I don't know if they were trying to send a message to Maduro and scare him, but this is extremely serious, guys. This means that the U.S. is probably going to be using bombers against Venezuela, which means that they're probably going to go for a decapitation strike on the Venezuelan government to take out Maduro and his top generals. And all three of the bombers didn't show up on the prior screenshots, but here you can see all three of them up in the air. They were losing signal at some point over the Caribbean because it is a pretty remote area, so the signal was kind of spotty. But here you can see all three. And this afternoon, we have a U.S. presidential doomsday plane up in the air over Nebraska. We also have a nuke sniffer plane up in the air over Nebraska as well. And the nuke sniffer planes detect traces of radiation in the atmosphere. So I don't know if they're expecting some kind of nuclear power plant meltdown in Ukraine, or if Russia's going to be testing a nuke soon. And the presidential doomsday plane was flying with its tracker turned off, as you can see here. Okay, you can see that it just appeared on the flight tracker. And these doomsday planes are for the president in the event of a nuclear war or some kind of World War III scenario, an attack on the U.S. The president would get on this plane and command the entire U.S. military, including the nuclear arsenal, from the air, okay? And then here we have another B-52 airborne over Texas and Louisiana. Now, in addition to the B-52s going to Venezuela last night, right around the time when we saw those B-52s going to Venezuela, we had a record-long nuclear code of 288 characters. Okay, 288 characters is extremely unusual. The standard length is 30 characters. The longest I've personally heard, or my moderators have ever heard, is 268 characters. So this is now pushing up to 300 characters for an emergency action message. Now, these codes are basically targeting information for the nuclear forces, okay? So they send out targeting information to our subs and our silos and bombers. Okay, so this is probably related to the bombers in Venezuela or off the coast of Venezuela. Let me just play a clip of this crazy record-long nuclear code for you.
Hotel, Foxtrot, India, Uniform, Alpha, 6. This completion message of 288 characters. This is Concord out.
I'm not going to let you sit and suffer through 8 minutes of a nuclear code, but it literally took 8 minutes for this guy to read this code, and he has to repeat it. So he was literally reading this code for like 15 minutes non-stop. Okay. And another interesting thing is that he had two disregards. So the first code came in as 268 characters, then he disregarded it. Then he went up to a 288 character code, then he disregarded it halfway through reading it, and then finally he read the 288 character message, which means that they were changing the orders very quickly, and he had to cancel his code and reread it with the new code as the orders changed. So guys, something is going on. Okay, something is about to go down. It looks like the U.S. is getting ready to bomb Venezuela with B-52 nuclear bombers. And the U.S. Defense Secretary or Secretary of War Pete Hegseth promised on Wednesday that firepower was coming for Ukraine. Speaking ahead of a NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels, Hegseth said members of the alliance have stepped up their commitments to Ukraine, and those commitments will soon translate into capabilities. He did not say anything about the Tomahawk missiles, but he did say that firepower is coming for Ukraine, okay? Now, also, Trump again said yesterday that he was very disappointed in Putin while meeting with the president of Argentina. So Trump is still very pissed off with Putin. He said that the war has been dragging on for 4 years. And we're hearing some major breaking news that when Zelensky arrives at the White House on Friday in just 2 days, he will not only be discussing Tomahawk missiles with Trump, but he will also be discussing Ukrainian involvement in the U.S. missile defense shield in Europe, or U.S. missile defense in general. So what does that mean? That means that potentially Trump may position U.S. radars in Ukraine that can spy on Russia, early warning radars, okay, which would be a huge advantage to the U.S. But this is major breaking news. Zelensky to discuss Ukrainian involvement in U.S. missile defense on Friday. And by the way, Trump actually invited Zelensky to the White House. Okay? And they're going to mostly be talking about the Tomahawk missiles. All right? And we also heard some breaking news yesterday that the Trump administration has been pressuring Germany to supply Taurus missiles to Ukraine, potentially as a stipulation for the U.S. giving Tomahawks to Ukraine. In other words, Trump basically told Germany, if we give Tomahawks to Ukraine, you have to give Taurus missiles to Ukraine as well. And also we're hearing that the Trump administration was pressuring other European allies to provide long-range weapons to Ukraine, okay, as a stipulation for the Tomahawks. And we're hearing some very disturbing news about the combat readiness of F-35s here in the U.S. So apparently there's a big issue with combat readiness of F-35s and their pilots due to a lack of spare parts. This has forced pilots to spend more time in simulators rather than doing real-world exercises. Now, the good news is the Senate is going to be addressing this issue. I really hope they get that resolved soon, because that's a big problem. And the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, called Russia China's junior partner and said that if China wanted to attack Taiwan, then they would both coordinate it with an attack on the Baltics to keep NATO busy. And the Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski warned on Tuesday that Europe must be prepared for Russia to strike deep into Europe. Okay, that is very concerning. And we know that the heads of German intelligence agencies had this big meeting yesterday, or actually the day before, And during this meeting, they said that basically an attack on Europe is imminent and that Russia could quickly attack Europe unexpectedly, okay? And I want to remind you guys that Russia moved their forces to Estonia over the weekend. They sent troops to the border of Estonia, okay? And there's also a large number of troops in Belarus. Belarus randomly put their military on full combat readiness over the weekend for some reason, okay? And we know of all the troops that are built up in Belarus and Kaliningrad. So guys, get prepared. Things are about to go down in Venezuela and the Baltics. And last night we had another U.S. sub-hunter off the coast of Baja California, just south of San Diego, probably keeping an eye on the drug cartels here in the area. And then we had an Estonian Air Force reconnaissance plane heavily patrolling the Gulf of Finland, especially near Tallinn. And then also last night we had a Swedish reconnaissance plane spending a lot of time in northeastern Poland, keeping an eye on Belarus and Kaliningrad. And we're also hearing some major breaking news coming out of Pakistan. Apparently Pakistan launched a full-scale counteroffensive against the Taliban along the border. Pakistan is now moving heavy weapons, including tanks, towards the Spin, Boldak, and Shaman border areas amid ongoing clashes with the Taliban. And a couple of days ago, the Pakistani military released footage of all the U.S. Humvees that the Taliban left behind when they came under attack by the Pakistan army. So Pakistan looks like they're doing us a favor and getting back some of our equipment that we left behind for the Taliban to use all these years. Biden left all that equipment behind, and now looks like maybe at least some of it will get back, or at least it'll be destroyed. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back tonight with live updates and live monitoring. I'm going to try to get on earlier, like closer to 10 p.m., so stay tuned for that, and check out my Twitter page. It's at NYPrepper1. You can also follow me on Patreon. $5 a month gets you access to all these videos first before I post them to YouTube. And you don't get any advertisements with that like you do with YouTube. And also, I post text updates on Patreon, and I haven't done that in a couple of days just because I've been so busy, but I will resume that starting tonight and tomorrow. But until later on tonight, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.